from 1945 to 1947, the Transistor group goes to work. They're not the Transistor group, excuse me, they're the semiconductor group. And in fall of 1947, two guys working under Shockley, John Bardeen and Walter Brattain, come up with this, which is very ugly, but quite miraculous. It's about, if anybody's ever seen it, it's actually about the size of the tip of my pinky, so it's fairly small. And that sheet of crystal underneath the arrowhead is germanium. It's not silicon, it's lightly doped germanium. And on the side of that arrowhead are sort of gold wires coming in there. And on the day before Christmas Eve, Bardeen and Brattain with Shockley there too demonstrated it for the Bell Labs executives, and they amplified their voice somewhat like 18 times. And they agreed that it was something tremendously big. So they found this thing, this putative replacement for the vacuum tube, and it would seem that the world would change, but it didn't, because what they discovered pretty quickly was how hard these things were to make. In those early days, I mean, I would go through all these stories of Bell Labs guys bringing in military generals or heads of corporations to see this wondrous new transistor. But if it was a humid day, the thing would stop working. If somebody slammed a door nearby, it wouldn't work. There were tremendous challenges of manufacturability. Eventually, those were worked out. And eventually, too, Shockley created the idea for something called the junction transistor. Still later, there were other things like field effect transistors that came into play. And one by one, these problems of manufacturing were solved at Western Electric factories with the help of the development team at Bell Labs. And by the early 1950s, these transistors were just starting to make their way into the electronics industry.